Hello, this is Brother Joseph. Today I want to talk to you about the one true church. Now, it's become a issue recently because of orthobros, and they're going after apologists who are evangelizing Muslims and trying to drum up this issue. I'm glad the question's raised, but the manner in which it was, I think the orthobros is a bit off. More than that, I think the whole conversation is a bit off, and that's why I'm writing an article and making a video here, and I'll probably do another video after I write the article. But what I mean by it's off is that the conversation is centering around dogma only, doctrine and dogma, teachings. The conversation isn't touching on covenant theology, which is at the heart and at the center of having the proper lens from which to see, understand, and know the one true church. Which one is it, and how do we relate to it? Those are two important questions. That's really what we're trying to get at, what everyone's get at. Which one is it, and how do we relate to it? I can't touch on anything in this video. It would take a while. I'm still in the middle of writing, but I did want to touch on one thing, and that's how does covenant theology help us? When we go to Ephesians 5, I get my Bible right here, 20 verses 22 on to chapter 6 verse 4, we find something interesting. St. Paul is showing a parallelism between the natural family and what I would call the divine family. The natural family we know is the father, the mother, and the kids. It's a trinity. The divine family is what we see Paul doing in paralleling a natural father with God the Father, or Christ as the head. It's depends on where you read it. He parallels the wife and mother in a family to the church, and then the children of a family are the members of that church. There's a direct parallelism between these two things. Why is that? Well, when we go back to the creation, which is what Paul points to for the source of his doctrine, we see the natural family and the divine family, consisting of the church, were made in the image and likeness of God. In the same way that man is made in the image and likeness of God. Man has a heavenly icon. We're imagers. We rely on an icon. That icon is heavenly. That icon is God. He is the source of our identity, of our purpose, and our function. That's what an icon does. It fills the imager with the source of as a source of identity, purpose, and function. The same is true for the family. The sacred institutions is what I like to call them. The natural family and the divine family. The natural family is the imager. It has no source of identity, person, and function without the icon, which is the divine family. And that's what St. Paul's doing. He's showing us this great, what he calls mystery, and I think that's in verse 30. I'd have to look at it. He's showing us that. So what does this mean to the conversation? Well, in the same way that you find as an individual your source and identity and function in God, the natural family finds it in the divine family. And if that is the case, then we can understand the church by way of the natural family. It's like a reverse engineering in a way. Right? The church is a mother. It's the mother. The source of motherhood comes from the church. So and this is the problem, is that conversation happening, which happens usually among Catholic traditionalists or orthobros. They're focused on doctrine, but they're not thinking in terms of what's at the heart of it. What's at the heart of it is a divine family. We have to see the church as a family. And we know the experience of family by way of our own family. This is how God reveals himself to us. We know the love of a father by way of the love of our natural fathers. And we know what it's like to die and sacrifice for your children by the way a parent dies and sacrifices for the children. We know what a mother looks like and what the love of mother is like, and what involves the honor of your mother by way of being kids who do that to our natural mothers. You understand my point? And so what we do is we take this lens and we look through salvation history, and we can see the engagement of saints and prophets with the church. And we can also see, because families are linear, they have a chronology. You can have a family tree dating back to the beginning of your family. We can also trace that family by way of chronology, especially because we have the promise of God himself. This covenant, he said, will last forever. But we also see, when we look at history, we see that this covenant with this people, it's kind of like a roller coaster ride. And we see that in Deuteronomy 27, when God tells us that when the church is being a blessing and being faithful, God will bless it. But when the church is off, when the church is doing wickedness, which happens throughout salvation history, look at the time of Elijah, Jeremiah, the Arian heresy. When that happens, we see, then God allows a punishment to come to the church, and it doesn't become a good example at all. Back to the problem with the Orthodox argument, right? Or even the Protestant argument. That's why they hop church to church. They don't understand family faithfulness through hard times and how to apply that to the church, because they don't understand the church. They're using a faulty measurement. Okay. Once you identify the church, you don't just jump ship because you don't like where things are going. You stay strong, like the prophets, like Elijah. Even if they're trying to kill you and you run to the mountains, you say, I'm the only one left. You stay strong. And you stay with your mother when she's sick, and you nurse her back to health. And that's what the prophets did, even at the cost of their own lives. This is missing from that conversation. And it's a very, very major issue, because it is at the heart of the church. The very heart. Now, I arrived at the conclusion in looking at that family tree in the history, in the pattern throughout salvation history, that the one true church is the Catholic Church, but of course we're in the last days, which I've written a lot about. Right now we're in a great apostasy, so our mother is sick, and I need to stay by the bedside and try to help nurse her back to health along with some other people. But that, my conclusion aside, I believe the lens is true. Covenant theology, seeing the church as the mother in a divine family, and I'm one of the children of that family. That helps me understand my role. I look at the lineage and I can trace it, and once I know which one it is, I can fill it with that role and not jump ship like what a lot of people want to do by using a faulty measuring rod and just looking for the one that has the most in common with the theology I presently have. You can see how that's just off, and how it's so much better, and it makes more sense in light of the gospel that you see it in light of this mother in a divine family. There's more to it, and I'll be writing about it, and I'll let you know when it's out. I do hope that those who are talking about this issue does happen upon my article. I'll send it to them. Hopefully they see it. If they don't, that's life. That's fine. But, those people like David Wood and Ruslan, and who are talking about this in the Ortho Bros, well, I'd like, if they get a hold of it, I'd like to hear, what their thoughts are as well. Because it's a good conversation to have, as long as we're having this as mature adults, trying to encourage each other towards the truth. that's everything. So, as always, God bless.